Winger and Taisha Davis. Welcome to the Good Morning Show. How you doing?
Welcome, guys.
Thank you. Good morning.
Thank you.
Guys,
Good morning.
Ms. Davis, let me ask you a question. Serving as the director, can you explain the role of the New Orleans Mobile Crisis Intervention Unit within the city's emergency response system?
Sure. Good morning. The Mobile Crisis Intervention Unit is aspiring to be the fourth branch of emergency services. And when I say aspiring, we're working through the logistics of that. But essentially, we take 911 calls, mental health calls for service. Ideally, those calls nonviolent to get a mobile crisis unit alone. But we also support the other first responders, police, fire, and EMS, in persons suffering from some sort of mental health crisis.
So how does the MCIU integrate with the existing 911 system?
Okay, so we take 911 our OPCD has built out calls that can come straight to a mobile crisis intervention unit. They have to fit a certain criteria. If not, once police are on the scene and they have deemed the scene that could better be served or supported by us, they will call us for service once they're out.
Great. And Mr. Winger, talk to me a little bit about what are the primary goals of MCIU and how these goals differ from traditional emergency response teams like police and EMS.
Well, the primary goals for MCIU, the health department created this program to serve the people with mental health difficulties in the least restrictive possible way. We also another goal is to alleviate other first responders for more appropriate mental health treatment and response. And that's basically the reason why we have the Mobile Crisis Intervention Unit.
Talk to me a little bit about what are some of the challenges that MCIU faces in providing timely and appropriate responses to mental health crises.
Well, first of all, we have an excellent response time of from the time the call is received to the time we get to the scene is about 10 minutes. So we have a rapid response time, and I think Taisha can give us more insight on that.
Challenges would be is that, like I said, we haven't been, delegated or deemed as true first responders, but we are certainly acting in that capacity. So a little bit of like access to all the information or access to specifics, logistics that quite necessarily we wouldn't have access to, or communication with other first responders on scene. Some of those can be the barriers. However, we have built out internal processes that allow us to connect with them, respond to them appropriately, and provide those on-scene supports, interventions, and or resources.
So can you walk us through the process when someone calls 911 to report a nonviolent behavioral health crisis? How does the MCIU determine the level of intervention needed?
Okay, so walking us through it, the caller will call 911 as traditionally, ask the questions that 911 asks. Depending on how those questions are answered will determine what response you get. Do you get police? Do you get EMS? Do you get fire? Do you get MCIU? At that moment, if it comes straight to an MCIU call, we use a dispatch first model, which means we dispatch out. We call that person that called in to get that real-time information. What is actually going on with that person at that time? And at that time, we arrive on scene. We do further assessment.
Because the reason I asked that, I heard you say early on that if police are on scene and they determine it to be something more suited for you, then they will call you. So that information isn't gathered with the 911 dispatcher first? Like sometimes police show up first and then you have to be called?
Absolutely. And the reason for that is just dependent on the way those questions are answered. So if you don't know specifics, it may trigger an unknown response, and that could trigger police.
And you got and the MCIU unit, one of your aims is to reduce the burden on police officers and other first responders in the city of New Orleans?
Yes.
What would you say? You've mentioned that you aren't necessarily considered to be a first responder. What, if you are considered to then be a first responder, how would that change, I guess, your day-to-day operation, and how might it benefit the citizens of New Orleans?
It would change the day-to-day operation because now we're fully integrated into the system, and then it allows us to have, greater access, greater availability within all the processes within the system, and then it allows us, for the citizens of New Orleans, of course, capacity-wise, we would be able to take more calls, have access to more information, and be better prepared to serve them.
And with the ongoing, shortage of police officers that's been going on in the city of New Orleans for quite some time now, it then would free them up for other areas and free you guys up to do what you do.
Absolutely.
We're in conversation with Benjamin Winger, the New Orleans Health Department Coordinator for the Mobile Crisis Intervention Unit, and Taisha Davis, Resources for Human Development Director, which is a nonprofit contracted with the New Orleans Health Department. If you want to join the conversation, the number here is 504-582-9422. We're going to go to break, but on the other side of the break, we will have more with Benjamin and Taisha right here on WBOK 1230 AM.
What New Orleans is talking about.
All day long. Welcome back. Good morning, and welcome back to the Good Morning Show. I am your host, Dr. Ashanta Wyatt. In studio with me is none other than
State Senator Wesley Bishop.
And we are in conversation with Benjamin Winger, the New Orleans Health Department Coordinator for the Mobile Crisis Intervention Unit, partnered with Taisha Davis, Resources for Human Development Director, which is a nonprofit contracted with the New Orleans Health Department. Listen, we were talking off air, but we want to give a shout out to the St. Mary's. Is that Xavier Prep?
Xavier Prep.
Look, I wanted to get a riled up.
Class of 2002.
Class of 2002 from the Xavier Prep, and Warren Easton is also in the building with Mr. Benjamin Winger. And listen, shout out to Southern University at New Orleans as well, because both people sitting in studio with us have some relationship with Southern University at New Orleans. Some great things come out of New Orleans, y'all. So you want to tell us more about how does the MCIU aim to reduce the burden on police officers and other first responders in New Orleans?
So we aim to reduce the burden by providing those on-scene interventions and supports and doing those warm handoffs when available. Since existence, which we've been in existence since June 1 of 2023, we've been able to consistently provide about 35 to 40% of reducing the calls or the burden on New Orleans Police Department and other first responders.
And if she sounds so informed, it's because she basically grew up in this department. She's been there, 11 years?
Yes.
She started interning there.
Yes, absolutely. I started with RHG back in 2014. That was my place of internship, going through grad school, trying to balance life and work. And so,
now she's the head black woman in charge.
Now, what did you go to grad school?
I went to grad school at the Southern University in New Orleans School of Social
Don't
Work.
get it twisted.
So can you discuss how the MCIU helped to prevent individuals in crisis from being sent to emergency rooms or facing potential criminal charges?
So we aim to reduce that by providing those on-scene interventions and support, being someone that's from the community, knowing the resources available and knowing the presentations of these mental health crises, right? We're able to provide those absolute most appropriate interventions. Don't get me wrong. At times, some people do have to go to the emergency room, but ideally, our goal is to connect them with resources, connect them with providers, reconnect them back with their providers to be able to support them in the best setting.
So, Mr. Benjamin, how do you measure success or impact for the MCIU program? Are there any specific metrics or data points that demonstrate its effectiveness in the community?
Well, to date, MCIU has, since we started June 1st, 2023, we have seen MCIU has received over 4,750 calls today.
Wow.
Total mental health calls for the city of New Orleans, whether police answers or not, or MCIU is to date, since we started, over 15,926 calls. So we're taking about 35, as Taisha alluded to, we're taking about 35 to 40% of those calls. That's equates to about 10 calls a day, with 3 units running and a sprint unit with MCIU.
Oh, wow. I didn't even think about the volume of calls you guys are handling. That's it doesn't shock me because we are we're trauma induced here, and I say induced because a lot of these things can be prevented, but we are, subjected to trauma all the way around the board, whether it's housing, whether it's lack of jobs, poor school systems. It's just trauma, which ultimately presents itself as needing someone of your expertise. So how does the MCIU collaborate or other mental health organizations or community resources to address the needs of individuals in crisis?
So we do what's called the warm handoff. So if there's someone that we intervene with and we provide support interventions to, we do what's called a warm handoff, meaning that we will connect that provider, connect that agency, make those connections for that person. Hey, so-and-so needs to access your services, or so-and-so needs to get reconnected with your services, or we need to make a referral that they can benefit from those services. It just depends. We see all kind of different things when responding to these type of calls, and we use it's not a one-all be-all. We use a specific mindset. Everyone is individual and deal with that case individually.
Tell me this here. How does MCIU work to raise awareness about the availability of your services here in New Orleans?
So we've online, of course, online, social media. We have commercials. We do all kind of outreach and resources, whatever we can do to get into the community, stay in the community, be aware in the community. We do all kind of things.
And might I add that we do have a community advisory board of 9 members that is open to the public. We do have meetings on a quarterly basis, and that community advisory board will be answering to and creating a report for the Quality of Life Committee at City Hall.
We have a call on line 1. Good morning, James. Welcome to the Good Morning Show. You are in conversation with Benjamin Winger and Taisha Davis.
Good morning, young people. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
That wasn't for you, Wesley. I know you old.
Oh, who am I talking to?
James.
I'm just picking about it.
We good, baby. We
James.
good.
I'm one of the frequent callers. I'm a frequent flyer. Look, so I'm very proud of y'all system, and I wanted to ask, do y'all have any trainings or anything that coexists with fire, EMS, and police?
Absolutely. We've built out such great partnership with NOPD every Thursday or every morning where there's recurring in-service with the CIT sergeant. I am there to support, ask questions, provide education and support from a clinical perspective on how we can best, kind of get that information out, get that awareness and availability out to all first responders. So absolutely.
And when we first
one more
started-
question. What is your protocol for scene safety?
Absolutely. Scene safety is always first. So if we have a don't know, don't go, that is when we lean on our partners. NOPD, we will call them if we're unclear, if we're uncertain, that information that we gather in real time doesn't add up. That is a time where we may choose to step back and call our partners to address that scene safety and maintain it throughout the intervention.
Thank you so much, James.
This is a very needed entity in this city, and you guys are doing an amazing job. Thank you for the info.
Thank you so much,
Thank
James,
you.
for your call. I guess my follow-up question would be, just listening to you talk, is there training that happens for the 911 dispatcher to be able to decide if it's a crisis intervention call or if it's a police intervention call?
So 911 does use an international questions that they use internationally. However, there is training. Again, myself and Sergeant, I have to shout out Sergeant Kiera Isaac of the New Orleans Police Department. We collaborate together daily. So we do provide some sort of crisis intervention training to OPCD 911 operators as well.
Is there anything else that you would like the community to know about the MCIU and its services?
Absolutely. We're here. We're available 24/7, 365, including holidays. We don't shut down. We operate just like other first responders. And if you need us or you know someone in need of mental health services or in some sort of mental health crisis, call 911. We're available.
So, Mr. Winger, is there any parting thoughts you have for our WBOK listening audience or any contact information should someone listening feel like they can benefit from your services?
Yes, the New Orleans Health Department has established a dashboard for the public, and it's at nola.gov/MCIU. You can look at the stats. We are a data-driven program, and we a data-driven performance program. So we are looking at the performance of MCIU and how we can do things better.
Well, thank you. Listen, we want to thank all of our guests. This has been an amazing show. We talked about